Israel teeters on the edge as the Haredi conscription crisis collides with military fatigue, internal fractures, and global backlash. Netanyahu's survival hinges on balancing rebellion at home, a war-weary army, and a collapsing international image, while Gaza burns and coalitions crumble under the weight of ideology and exhaustion. The question echoes: can Israel survive its internal fractures before external pressure decides for it? And I'm Salma Al-Fi'i, and welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
And Yadot Ahronot has reported that the Israeli government faces imminent collapse as ultra-Orthodox parties demand legislation exempting their youth from military service by Shavuot deadline. Tensions peak with factions like Agudat Israel pushing to topple the coalition, while moderates urge delay. Netanyahu now stands at a crossroad, risking political chaos either way. The conscription issue remains Israel's most divisive domestic crisis, pitting religious communities against secular and Arab lawmakers. Any compromise risks alienating both sides. Analysts suggest this ultimatum may be tactical, testing Netanyahu's loyalty to his base. Yet, dissolving the government could backfire on Haredem themselves, as future coalitions may offer less leverage. The coming days will reveal whether this is a genuine threat or strategic pressure to secure full exemption. Political survival, not ideology, seems to drive the current standoff. And according to Haram Online, Doctors Without Borders, the MSF, accuses Israel of weaponizing aid in Gaza and using the US-backed distribution system to force Palestinian displacement under the pretext of humanitarianism. And since May the 27th, deadly violence erupted at 8 sites in Rafah and Wadi Gaza, killing dozens and wounding hundreds. Major aid agencies reject the plan, calling it a violation of humanitarian principles manipulated by Israel to control access and movement. The MSF condemns the scheme as a cynical ploy, masking ethnic cleansing under legal pretense. With aid blocked, civilians starve, and Israel faces growing global accusations of crimes against humanity. The world watches as survival becomes another battleground in Gaza's relentless tragedy. And Israel teeters on the edge as the Haredi conscription crisis sparks military strain, internal division, and global backlash threatening Netanyahu's rule and the nation's very future.
At the heart of Israel, an internal crisis is brewing, one that could have greater consequences than any war on its borders. The mandatory conscription law, long resisted by the ultra-Orthodox Haredi community, has become the deepest fault line in Israeli society. The Israeli army is facing a severe manpower shortage, especially after the Gaza war. Official data shows 16.5% of soldiers have withdrawn due to psychological trauma, while reserve mobilization rates have dropped to just 85%. The military has even begun calling back veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, a dangerous sign of growing fragility. Haredi leaders view military service as a form of religious corruption, and they are backed by extremist parties like Shas and United Torah Judaism. The government has poured billions into appeasing this group, despite mounting international pressure. Mass protests are sweeping Tel Aviv, led by former military commanders demanding reform. At the same time, Netanyahu faces personal accusations of being unable to accept failure, described by one former Israeli psychiatrist as emotionally unfit for leadership. All of this weakens national unity and threatens the survival of his coalition. Israel launched initiatives like the Hasmonean Brigade, but enlistment rates among Haredim remain below 50%. As the crisis deepens, it's clear that security reforms cannot be separated from political ones. So the question now is not only about the army, but about the future of the state itself. Can Israel reconcile religion and state? Will Netanyahu survive the divisions tearing his government apart? Or there is an early election now inevitable?
And providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning will Netanyahu's government fall over the conscription law, what's behind the Haredi crisis and internal divisions in Israel, and also the humanitarian aid crisis in Gaza. Joining us from Jericho is Dr. Abdel Nasser Maki, political science professor, and from Cairo, Mr. Ibrahim El-Darawi, the writer and political analyst. Welcome to Think Tank, gentlemen. And I will start off with Dr. Maki. And do you think, sir, is the Haredi ultimatum over conscription a tactical maneuver, do you think, or an imminent threat that could bring down Netanyahu's coalition?
I think the Haredim is now, working in order to get their interest. So they are pressure on Netanyahu in order that they will not go to the army. And this is their policy, and this is they are used to do this from the establishment of the state of Israel after 1948. You know, the number of the Haredim in Israel is about 750,000, which about 10% from the people of Israel. So they are a huge number, which they also, that they could pressure and they could do something on the policy of Israel, especially on the government of Netanyahu. So I don't think that this is technical. This is some tactic. This is something Israeli, and I think they are pressure on Netanyahu. While there is a problem about the lack of the shortage of the number of the soldiers in Israel, as you know, in Gaza, also in West Bank, and they are, as they said, they have 6 fronts before. So I think this is something that the army, especially the head of the army, and also some of the coalitions inside the government, they request Netanyahu to pressure on the Haredim in order to, to go to the army. And this is the dilemma and the problem between the scholars and between the scholars and also between the Haredim. The people of Israel.
Yes. Well, Mr. El-Darawi, can Netanyahu, do you think, afford to defy the ultra-Orthodox parties without triggering early elections and further political chaos?
In the outset, we wish to affirm that Netanyahu originally from the Haredim, and he is one of the extremist Jewish that biased in Haredim. He has a very extremist background, and therefore, if Netanyahu wanted to convince the Haredim in Egypt, so it is possible. We're talking about 179,000 of Israeli citizens from Haredim do not serve in the military, and even the Israeli state is secular, so for this state shouldn't include a religious state. What Netanyahu pursues is to rely on the extremists, as they have the strong voices and the electoral voices, and through elections, and we find the religious have the domination on the community and societies, and therefore the Israeli state as secular is facing a great danger in light of the growing extremist factions against Israelis. themselves, is not only the Palestinian. Of course, there is a problem between the Palestinian and the extremist Jews. Netanyahu can or cannot what he wishes. I think that Smotrich and Bin Ghafir are Maronite with respect to Netanyahu, and Haridahum is fully trust Netanyahu as an extremist Zionist religious man. So they are backed with them. And if you look at to how to change the roles, this is what's happening in Israel. Is distributing roles. There is no Jewish extremist who wish something, and the state wishes or wants the opposite. If the public interest in favor of a group of them or a mixture between two of them, so they will do it. If you look at the Haredim, there only accounts 400 that have the right of constrictions, and they say that they are religious and they were exempt from the constrictions. And the fight started by Netanyahu along with the Haredim themselves. So the Haredim within Israel are armed in natural, and they do the attacks and building settlements by the Israelis as Haredim carrying guns. But they never wish, or they are not enlisted, but they are under the brigade that they are existed, such as the public reserve, but they are themselves armed. Ben Gvir gave him the green light to killing the Palestinian. Netanyahu himself did the same. But the Israeli state, in light of the expansion of conflict in Palestine...
Let me move to Dr. Makki, please, and let me ask you, sir. With mass casualties at 8 distribution centers in Gaza, do you think Israel is implementing a deliberate strategy of humanitarian suffocation, most probably?
Yes, I think Israeli now is, that's implementing this policy. They want, that to pressure on the Palestinian, and they want them to go to some places where they could gather all of them there, which is also in the assistance, that's where they could deliver the assistance, that's aid. And as you see, that many of the Palestinians have been killed in these places while they are going to bring food for them and for their children. So the American also, they participate there to killing the Palestinian with the Israeli. This is the policy of Israeli now. Now, before 20 minutes, the head of the army, the Israeli, Zamir, he said that they want to expand this process and, that's the operation in Gaza. And now they started to increase the pressure on the people. This is not something that we could say that they are going to agreement. They are not interested in agreement. They are just now pressure, focusing on killing the people. They want to send a message to the Hamas that they are continue to kill the people until Hamas will give up and to give up for some of their demands. So this is something, policy program by the Israeli government, especially this is the extreme government, which their policy just now is to kill the people and also to go to the genocide and to provide the people and to prevent the people to get some food for them. There are the starvation in Gaza. Female, there is no problem. If the people in Gaza didn't receive, that's food, maybe in 2-3 days, I think we could say that there are real genocide, there are real starvation, and the people will start to die, especially for the children.
Mr. Darawi, going back to you again, how effective are the Egypt and the Qatar diplomatic efforts in countering the US-backed ceasefire proposal that Hamas seeks to amend?
we should assure you that what's happening throughout all the proposals are exerted from the first Egyptian proposal. Cairo firstly proposed in time of Biden and then Trump. We find that it was through four phases. Firstly, the full delivery of the eighth achievement of a full comprehensive deal, and then to have a reconstruction process laid down by Cairo, and then the establishment of the Palestinian state. Egypt and Qatar, from the first moment to the cessation of the war, but unfortunately there is a lack of a U.S. will in put an end of this war. Unfortunately, do not wish to have the fighting between Israel and the Palestinian side, and even the initiative of Woodcock was just only to release the captives and not to end the war, so some sort of a truce, and for the US to adopt the idea of the cessation of the war. But the US wishes only a truce through which Israel, following the release of the Israelis, to resume controlling Gaza, killing the Palestinians, and do what they are doing, such as salvation, with the first plan of generals and the process of starvation and the process of delivering the aid that fully failed, as the UNRWA was the most professional agency to do such a thing, as we are facing a real moral crisis. The whole international community will shoulder the responsibility of this. And even the European left this between the hands of Netanyahu and Trump's administrations. But Europeans, when they know that they are a real humanitarian crisis, they only moved under the humanitarian consciousness, and we've seen the Israeli statement to the European by saying that they are going to build hundreds of new settlements in response to what the European countries are doing. And even the visits of the Arab foreign ministers in supporting Mahmoud Abbas was rejected by Israel. And the U.S. administration in Trump during the Gulf visit, that they cannot even allow to receive a delegation in Ramallah. And the second point, that the American Trump isn't able to halt the war. We should see that there is another vision, which is the new shape of Gaza, as that free Gaza without its residents. So it is a real catastrophe by the US and what Trump's pursue in the Middle East, and repeat what happened in previously to grant Gaza of the safe exiting backed by America and Israel.
Let me just move to our second guest, sir, Dr. Makki. I go back to you again. Does the ongoing military service exemption for the Haredim reflect a deeper identity crisis, maybe between the religious versus secular Israel?
Yes, I think this is true. There is a crisis between as you know, between Haredim and between secular Israel. And I think the Haredim, as I told you before, they are used to be exempted from the army and to be soldiers from 1948, from the establishment of the country, of the state of Israel. Now, as you know, there is a problem concerning the number of the soldiers in Gaza. Many of them have been killed, and now there is a problem on the shortage of the, that's the soldiers, because now Israeli is want to expand in all their military operation in all Gaza, so they need soldiers.
Yes.
And as you know, many of the soldiers have been killed, so they need So because of this,
But sir,
they
you're saying
requested.
that they're a large number. They're supposed to be constituting, as you were saying, 10% of the population. Is that correct?
Yes, 10%.
They're a lot.
10% from the, yeah, but because of, as you know, they need them also to be joined to go to Gaza. The problem is that they are against some of their leaders from the Haredim,
Yes.
and especially they are there in the Knesset or Rabbi, which is their, that's Hacham. They had some statement saying that they forbidden for their followers to go to service in the army. And because of this, when they requested, there's a committee in Israel, they requested the number of the soldiers to come, I think it's about 200,000, just 205. They just, that's pay, and they will follow, and they will go to they registered their names to
In the
the army.
conscription. Yeah.
Yes. So because of this, you see that there's a problem, and this problem have been created by the leaders of the, that's leaders of the Haredim,
Yes.
which they said they are not say some statements to their follower to go to the army. They just eat. They have food. They are just, that's marriage, and this is their life, without going to the army and to service to serve the state. And because of this, the other, that's part of the Israeli scholars or the unreligious, they are against this because they said that these people are just taking some huge portions of the budget for their that demands without doing anything for the state, without service on the that's in the army. And because of this, there is a problem, and this problem, I think, maybe in the future will be growing and increasing, and they will make problem inside the state, the Israeli people. But I think now, according to the coalition, you have, that's the religious, Sunnism religious, Ben Ghafir, Smotrich, and also Mifdal. Some of the religious party, they are, that supporting Netanyahu. He get about 64 seats from 120. So he have the majority in order to stay.
Yes.
In order to stay on the rules on Israel until the October 2026. So yes, there is a problem, but I don't know if this problem will increase if the war, that continue, because there will be a problem for the number of the soldiers of the Israeli, because some of
the
them
Israeli
will be killed.
army. Okay, Mr. El-Darawi, are rising global condemnations, especially from Europe, a turning point in maybe isolating Israel internationally over Gaza? Could that be a possibility?
I think that the international community is trying to isolate Israel in the public, so the face of the state and the government would take some time. But the people started to be freed of the doctrine of the anti-Semitism, as we've had a crisis in the Western, which is the anti-Semitism. Anyone would critic Israel will be accused by the anti-Semitism. We'll find today millions in the streets of Paris and London, in the American universities. So the doctrine of the anti-Semitism isn't available, but it is better for the European support to the Palestine started to be grown. And the assets of Israel in the West started to be collided, but some other Israelis were left supported Netanyahu, and even Netanyahu by himself through the Israeli oppositions that talking frankly that Benjamin Netanyahu sent them backward hundreds of years. So if today, if they say that Netanyahu has survived and will transfer Israel of the crisis of the AIDS doctrine and make Israel to be lasting for more 100 years. In this time, critics have started as Benjamin Netanyahu started to destroy Israel, lies to the people, all this through the statement and slams received by Netanyahu in the Israeli Knesset and many of such in the Israeli media. There is a crisis between Israel and Europe as the only main supporter for Israel is the United States. And let me just say, as Arabs, supporters of the Palestinian cause.
And that was Dr. Abdel Nasser Maki, the political science professor, and Mr. Ibrahim El-Darawi, the writer and political analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, both, for your special insights and this valuable discussion. And as Israel's internal rifts deepen and Gaza suffocates under siege, the world watches a state at war with itself, where politics, faith, and survival collide with no end in sight. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.